Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now that we've created some graffiti fonts, now we're going to move on to creating some symbols. So what is a symbol? A symbol is a simplified picture that represents a big idea. It's a picture that represents an idea. Ideas can be emotions, they can be companies, they can be personality traits, they can be sports. But they are not things that you can hold in your hand or touch. They're not material items. Ideas are bigger than that. If you can hold it, if you can touch it, it's not a big idea. Think about things like love. You can't hold love, you can't touch love. Yes, you can hug someone to show love, but it's not, love is an idea. Nike is an idea. You can't hold Nike, you can hold a Nike shoe. There is not just one thing that makes Nike. It's a company, it's big, it's an idea. So, why do we use these simplified pictures to represent ideas? If you saw this image on a door and you walked past it, who can go into that room? Okay, is it just girls? Is it just teenagers? Is it just brown-haired girls? Is it girls in dresses? Is it girls in cowboy boots? Is it girls with watches? When you have a lot of ideas and a lot of details in your image, it gives the viewer a lot of different ideas. So if we go to this picture, what about now? Now we've simplified it down. Now it is just dress. It is just girl. So we use symbols to represent which idea we want the viewer to understand. So we're not confusing the viewer with a lot of details. You want to simplify it down so that the only thing the viewer sees is your big idea. Symbols are universal. They are used to say your meaning without language. You've noticed all the images we've looked at are images. They're pictures. They're not words. You don't have to speak English to understand a symbol. You don't have to, if you're walking around Japan, you see the same symbol that you would see. So, symbols are universal. They're pictures. So now, what we are going to do is we're going to come up with some big ideas about you to symbolize. So let's start here. Step 1 is coming up with some things that you like or like to do. You're going to brainstorm at least 3 things that are going to make you unique. What were the 3 things about me that made me unique? You're right. So we have our Xbox symbol over here that says that I like to play video games. We have my fabric and cutting to show that I like to sew. We have my Eiffel Tower that shows that I like to travel. These are all big ideas. Yes, an Xbox is an object. I don't know why that keeps coming up, guys. Sorry. We have an Xbox that is an object, but it's representing a bigger idea. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. So, now you're going to come up with at least 3 things that make you unique. They can be things that you do or like to do, or things that are part of your heritage. But they're things that make you unique. So I'm going to go over a couple of things that don't make anyone unique. So, things that I should not see are material objects, unless you're talking about having collections. Last year there was a 6th grader who collected pencils. She had 800 pencils at her house. She just loved pencils. So unless you're collecting something and it's the act of collecting that makes you unique, don't write down a material object. Anything that you own is replaceable. Ideas are not. They're something that goes beyond something that you can hold or touch. Now, everyone in this room is American. Everyone in this room likes to eat. So we all like to eat American foods. So I don't want to see things like pizza or candy or hamburgers or tacos. Any American food or Americanized food, we all love them. It doesn't make any of us unique. But you can, if you really love a yuck yum food, you can use those. For example, if I say sushi, say yuck or yum. So did you hear the mixed answers? Anything that if I say candy, everybody says yum. So you've got to get a food that is kind of either ethnic or strange. If you love Brussels sprouts, something that not everyone loves. You can also, if you really desperately want to use some symbols about food, but you've got to think about why. And we'll go over that when we're dealing with technology too. I have a friend who loves technology. He really, really does. He has 20 cell phones. He has 10 computers. Most of them don't function, but he loves taking them apart and putting them back together. He loves technology. Now, unless you are like my friend and you have a whole bunch of tech that you love just to love the tech, you don't love technology. Think about what you do with it. If you love your cell phone, what do you do with your cell phone? If you call or you text, then what's the big idea? The big idea is that you like to be social. So, think about what you do with the technology. Think about what you do. These are things you do. So if you desperately love to cook, you could use foods to represent it, and we're going to get to that in just a second. So think about things that you love to do. If you really love an object, think about what it is. If you really love your shoes, it could be that you love style. If you really love to go buy shoes, and it really isn't about the shoes, but it's about the buying of shoes, then maybe it's that you love shopping. So, now you need to go to your worksheet and fill out the things that make you unique. Alright, so now that you have these 3 ideas about making you unique, we're going to represent them. So you're going to represent them using material items. So I like to play video games. So I used an Xbox and I used my favorite video game, Rock Band, to represent that I like to play video games. So now you're just writing what are the material items that you use to do that activity. What are things you think of when you think of that activity? Now go and write for number 2 all the things that represent your big ideas. Step 3. Now we're going to draw those big ideas. We want these to be detailed. They're drawings. They're not symbols yet. Don't worry about simplifying it. You're going to add as much detail as you can. You can add backgrounds. If you look at mine, I added all these buttons into these controllers. I added the strap onto the Rock Band thing, the little like wonky bar, all of that stuff. As much stuff as you can think of, because it's going to be helpful for the next step. So go draw on your worksheet into the first set of boxes. So now simplifying is a little bit more complicated, so we're going to watch a little video and I'm going to show you ways of simplifying. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, ways to simplify an image. So as you can see, I have written up here that I like to play video games. I have my Xbox, and I have one of my favorite video games, Rock Band. And I have drawn my detailed images of the 2 things that I'm using to represent playing video games. So I've drawn my Xbox controller, and I've drawn my Rock Band controller. So now it is time to turn it into a symbol, to simplify it. So let's start with the Xbox controller. Now, there are multiple ways to simplify an image. So I'm going to draw multiple symbols over here, just so that you get the idea. When you simplify your image, you're only going to have to do it once. So the first, easiest way to simplify an image is to get rid of all the details. So if I just draw the shape of the controller, that would be a way to simplify it. I don't particularly like that idea, so we're going to try something else. Actually, let's erase and try something else. Now, another way to simplify an image is to zoom in. So if I say zoomed in to these 4 buttons, and I drew them, the A, B, Y. I'm sure I put those in the wrong spots, but you get the idea. So that it wasn't just the A button, because that wouldn't really make sense. But if I have those 4 buttons in their 4 colors, it's going to be very recognizable as the Xbox symbol. Okay? So one of the things as you are simplifying is you've got to make sure that it's still recognizable as your big idea. So if someone sees this, they think this. Now that still isn't my favorite idea, so I think I'm going to do one more time and I'm going to try a different button. So instead, I think I'm going to draw the power button, which has that kind of X on it. It's round. I kind of like that shape. So, I have simplified my Xbox controller by zooming in to one button that's very recognizable as the Xbox symbol. Okay, does that make sense, everyone? Any questions? Okay, so now let's move on to the second one. Now, if I do that the same way that I started with this one, and the first way I go to simplify is I say I am just going to draw the outline. What happens to my guitar controller? You're right, it becomes a guitar, which really doesn't symbolize playing video games, it symbolizes playing music. Though I like music, it's not really one of the 3 big ideas about me, so I need to get rid of it. So now, this is something that I see a lot of when people are working. So, what if I went from a Rock Band controller to a pair of drumsticks? What happened? This is what I call apples and oranges. Are apples and oranges both fruit? Yes, apples and oranges are both fruit, but they're not the same fruit. When you are doing this thing, this is one idea going all the way through. What happened? I changed ideas midstream. You don't want to have apples and oranges. Now, the way to solve apples and oranges is to pick one. If you really like the idea of orange, then you got to go back and change apple. If you really like the idea of apple, you've got to change orange. Now, since this really doesn't symbolize playing video games, I'm going to go back to my original idea and stick with my apple, or stick with my Rock Band controller. So, my next thought is, what is it that really makes this identifiable? What is the thing that makes it so that it is a Rock Band controller and it is not a guitar? So the idea that I went with is I decided to draw the fret with those 5 colored buttons. And when these are the 5 Rock Band button colors, it's going to be very recognizable as the Rock Band symbol. So, what you need to do is you need to do the same thing to all 3 of your big ideas. You need to take your drawn version and figure out whether you're going to zoom in, whether you're going to get rid of all the details, whether you're going to zoom into a detail, whether you're going to, and making sure that you don't change ideas from apples to oranges. So keep your ideas straightened, going all the way through. Make sure your simplified versions are identifiable. So you need to complete all 3 sections and then bring your worksheet to Ms. Chesser to be checked. Alright guys, so just as you saw, you need to go to your worksheet and complete step 4. Once you've finished all of them, you will move on to composition.